Think the 2023-24 Sharks, the 2019-2020 Sens, the 21-22 Coyotes. Those teams were expected to be horrid and were horrid. Their first liners and first pairings would be bottom sixers or bottom pairings on Stanley Cup contenders. Their bottom six and bottom pairings would most certainly be healthy scratches on Stanley Cup contenders. It's absolutely brutal. A few months ago, I made a video on what an unsuccessful rebuild done from scratch looks like, but what would a successful one be? Teams like the 2016-17 Avs, the 24-25 Preds, the 2021 Sabres were expected to be much better, but just fell far below expectations. The latter teams had the assets, but there's things that went horribly wrong, whether it's extreme underperformance or just rotten luck. We'll be focusing on the process of building teams that are expected to be last place and placed around the area too, from the darkest depth to Stanley Cup contention. First, we'll address the common themes of what lands teams in this position to begin with. The first important step of executing a rebuild from scratch is that the organization must accept the epiphany that one is in. They must fully commit to the rebuild every step of the way. If they try to fight it, it's just going to prolong the inevitable. The early 2020 Sharks, for example, tried to convince themselves that the window might still be open, and all it did was make the rebuild that they're going through right now more painful. It's better to admit earlier that a rebuild is necessary so that the franchise can get started on the right foot earlier. Now onto the certain elements that signal a team should go into a rebuild. First, teams going into rebuilds have aging cores whose best years are far behind. Teams going to rebuilds also have a subpar prospect pool or under 25s along with veterans far past their prime. It's the strength of their prospect pool and under 25s that determine if they have to do a rebuild or just a retool. New young cores must have that potential to carry on what the old core has built, and if they can, a rebuild is needed to gather up future assets they can. If a team is bad now and will be worse in a few years down the line, rebuild. Rebuilds are not an easy process, especially if it's from ground zero. There's maybe one or two valuable assets on the team, if any at all, and the team is projected to hit rock bottom in the standings. A top draft pick is most certainly in the mix. This is the one year where the team has zero expectations and are projected to lose badly on regular occasions. All the focus will be on is a lottery, as that's all they have to look forward to. The roster consists of horrible contracts, dead caps, scraps from other teams, career AHLers, draft busts, and those that are just happy to be on an NHL roster. There's a total lack of identity in this group of players, and most of these players are most likely moved or cast into the minors by year 3. The fans either sit out a season, find alternate teams, or decide to be part of a depleted attendance and viewers that don't mind putting themselves through excruciating pain. There's not really much GMs can do during the first year of a rebuild, besides ship off surprising players at the deadline for valuable draft assets and further weaken the roster to solidify its chances of getting the first overall pick. The whole franchise and fan base is happy that the pain is over, at least for now. Fast forward to the draft, whether they're picking 1, 2, 3, or 4, the consensus is always best player available. Unless you're the 2019 Senators, of course, nowhere in the roster, whether it's forward, defense, or goaltending, is very strong at all. Every other pick in the first, second, third, every round, the consensus is best player available. The franchise needs to accumulate as much talent as possible to get out of rock bottom. By the end of free agency, the GM should look for worthy veterans to mentor the young crops and re-sign any expiring players that have a shot of being part of the future. You may need to overpay a little for some players to convince them to be part of a garbage team, but that's okay. There's no expectations anyways. Not a very active offseason is expected at this stage, as expectations will stay minimal for next season. The worst is behind, but playoffs are still very much a pipe dream. The one difference is that there's hope for the future. If there's a top 5 draft pick from the draft a few months ago in your hands, assuming you're not the 2019 Sens obviously, he'll likely be a mainstay on the still god-awful roster unless he craps himself during training camp. Slot in some veterans that still provide value on the team, and the roster is not half bad compared to last year though, which is a bar set in the 7th level of hell. There's slight optimism going into the season, not in terms of results, but mostly watchability. If the top picks are meeting expectations, keep everything intact. If not, start scratching them for mental resets and send them down to the minors if they're truly not ready yet. The team shows flashes of brilliance, but the majority of the season is still losing badly. At the deadline, the story remains the same. Ship off surprising players who aren't going to be part of the future at the deadline to get as much future assets as possible from them. Come season's end, there's some improvement but not much. This is meant to be a year of development of the new core more than anything else. Now the GMs are starting to get put to the test. The memo for the drafts still remains the same though. best player available. The goal is to contribute to building a core for when the team is a contender. There's likely still a surplus of draft picks from pieces sold off. Come free agent frenzy, the GM should get a little more aggressive with their moves. Because there's a vision for the future now, the market is slightly more attractive to other players. Not in the sense of anything in the present, but that they'll hopefully be a puzzle piece to that in the future. The GM should still by no means overcommit on deals that deal away first round picks, but sign or trade for more high caliber pieces that'll make the team even more fun to watch the coming season. Overcommitting can lead to more issues down the line of a lack of assets and stifle a rebuild. The goal for next season is to continue improving in points, inching closer to the playoffs. This is a season where the organization should expect to see some semblance of team prosperity, not just individual. Ideally, getting out of the basement would be nice, but the goal is still to improve in point totals as playoffs are realistically still out of reach. With the focus of being on the young core, GMs should start looking ahead during the season for what the potential free agent market would look like in order to add some complementary pieces. The progress from year one of the rebuild should be very noticeable, as a team isn't just going to be a doormat night in and night out anymore. Other teams are being forced to do more to shut you down. All across the board, point totals, advanced stats, individual stats, they're all on the rise, and signs point to the team moving in the right direction. Come the trade deadline, once again you evaluate overperforming players who aren't going to be part of the future and ship them off, mostly still for future assets. But get some players who would be able to make an immediate impact. The season ends with a lot of hope, and the draft pick positions are now gradually going lower each round, signaling that the team is getting better. No longer should the GM be going for high draft picks. There's now an adequate young core that brings promise to the future. Now is the time to start getting aggressive with trades and signings. In certain cases where there's a great opportunity to sweep up a valuable piece like a top sixer, a starting goalie, or top four defenseman that solves a major weakness, giving away a first rounder wouldn't be such an overcommitment anymore. The team should expect to be competitive next season anyways, and the playoffs should be somewhat achievable. Although it's fine if the team isn't ready yet. For the first time in a while, there's actually some expectations, and finishing in the basement again would be a setback, as the franchise should be past those years by now. Fans are anticipating a fun ride ahead, with the team playing meaningful games in March. With the goal of staying in the hunt at least until March, fans are not going to accept being last in the division anymore. The suffering is over, and for the first time in a few seasons, the team is going to be competitive. Instead of dreading the start of the season, fans are hyped and excited to see what their team is going to put out. There's likely still at least a few glaring holes in the roster, however there's also at least one position that can carry the team to wins, whether that be goaltending, defense, or offense. Teams in this stage of the rebuild should aim to have above a 500 with slim chances of making the playoffs. They should be battling out until the last several games of the season. This comes from getting off to a manageable start, avoiding long losing streaks, and instilling good habits within the roster. It's around this time where the moral victories of whether a game was deserved or not starts fading away. Wins are earned, not deserved. This is a crucial part of establishing a winning attitude and a culture that will have compounding effects on the outlook of the players when they're going about the season. If the team makes the playoffs, they're ahead of the schedule. Even if they lose badly in their first round matchup, a bad experience is better than none. Last season, the franchise should have gotten a glimpse of what this core is shaping up to be. Now the GM must shore up as many holes as possible to maximize their chances of playoffs next season. Can the forwards use another top line contributor? Goaltending can use a better backup? Defense can use more depth? Keep a lookout for all those things. This offseason is the most optimistic the fan base has been for the last few years since the rebuild, and for good reason. Last season, they saw that level of compete, and it was evident no team should be taking them lightly. It's also about staying level-headed and not getting overconfident about continuous progress. With the right mindset, tools, and attitude, the team will be in good hands next season and will be pivotal in the trajectory of their current core. So for the first time in a long time, there's playoff expectations for this current core. They've done lots of losing the past few seasons, and it's given them the fire, the drive to show that they've learned, and it's time to prove themselves for real. Although it's certainly not the end of the world if they miss, that should be the bar set for themselves. Falling out of the race at any point is inexcusable, and they should definitely not be sellers at the deadline. In March, if every cog in the machine is up to speed, the GM can stand pat. Otherwise, make a move or two to bolster the roster come the last 20 games as everything becomes tighter. The season should be a big showing for what the rebuild has had to offer, and now the franchise is experiencing the fruits of their labor. Whether they made it in or it was until the bitter end, there's nothing to be ashamed of. However, if the team gets eliminated from contention before the last several remaining games in April, then something went majorly wrong and needs to be patched up ASAP, whether that's making changes on the roster, finding a new coach. The fans want something to be happy about soon. The objective stays the same. Whether the team just missed out or made the dance, locate anywhere in the roster that can use an improvement and make some signings or trades to fix those. At this point, trading first rounders is no longer off limits and the organization has already built up enough of a pipeline. The GM has the green light to be aggressive with trading away futures as long as they're pieces that can help now and several years down the line as well. Still not quite at the stage of trading away valuable futures for a 35 plus veteran, but now is the time to be pouncing on an opportunity. Remember that the job is far from over and that you're only halfway. The goal is to bring a championship to the city, and the team wants to be doing what it can to improve for the next coming years. If the team made the playoffs last season, their goal should be to win a round. If the team narrowly missed out, it's playoffs or bust, as the fans are starting to get impatient now. For the former, they should also try to clinch before the last few games or so to show that the team keeps getting better, but also that last season wasn't a fluke and they're for real. Get off to a hot start and keep it like that. Whatever you do, avoid slumps of more than 3 losses in a row. Stay afloat in the playoff race, get all the points you can because there can be stuff like injuries, hard parts of the schedules that are going to sabotage you. All teams can go through this and it's important that the team creates enough of a cushion for themselves so they can allow for some losses here and there. Come the trade deadline, again, make whatever moves necessary to make the team better as a whole. Ideally, you don't want to be fighting it out until the bitter end of the regular season. You want to have clinched before 80 games. If you're in a weaker division, you want to try to go for home ice in the playoffs. Otherwise, don't go down too easy against whoever you're playing. So if you still haven't made the playoffs yet, it'd be fair for sports analysts to classify the rebuild as a failure. Anyways, making the playoffs should not be a worry anymore. The roster on paper should be competing for home ice and there shouldn't be any component, goaltending, defense, or forwards that are going to be a weak link. The goal is to make the playoffs comfortably next season and that the team has shown it wasn't a perfect storm that they made the dance in previous years. They should also aim for all team stats like point percentage, goal differential, special teams, advanced stats like 5-on-5 expected goals for, Corsi percentage to be favorable. It's past the results on the surface, but it's also about the little details as well. Now is the moment your core should be entering their primes. This is a season where you should begin transitioning from playoff team to cup contender. No team should be choosing to play their backup against this team. Bottom feeders should all be easy pickings for points. No part of the roster, whether it's goaltending, defense, or offense, should be below average and at least one of those should be top 5 in the league. This also comes with easily making the playoffs, which means clinching before April and grabbing a divisional seed to finish off. Come the trade deadline, because you aim to be a contender soon, focus on the weakest points in your roster and ideally go for long-term solutions, not just rentals that are going to be around for one playoff run. In the playoffs, everyone is good and your weaker points will be magnified. Where you get in the playoffs is an indicator of how close you are to becoming a contender. At this point, the team should be getting home ice and winning at least one round. Whatever issues your roster still has, whether it's a top 25 forward, top 20 defenseman, more depth, the GM should do everything in power to fix those gaps. If they weren't already a contender, they should be one come the start of next season. All this work put into building the core and its supporting cast should be coming to fruition for as long as possible. All areas of the roster should be at least top 10 and one top 5. For as long as possible, the core that's stuck through the worst times should be kept together as it's teams that have players who stick around for 15 plus seasons that are the most successful. Think the Crosby era Penguins, the Bergeron era Bruins, the Taves and Kane era Hawks, Lidstrom era Red Wings. These are cores that have all won the cup before and had at least a few other long playoff runs under their belt. This is what should be replicated. Prolonged success and a long cup contending window. Well, all this pain, suffering, and torment of several years ago are being repaid with glory and prosperity. You're in your cup contending window and you want to keep it like that for as long as possible to maximize the amount of championships you bring to the city. Present day, teams like the Avs, Stars, Panthers, Knights, Oilers are in this phase. When a certain area of the team is going to hold it back from competing for cups, those insufficiencies should aim to be dealt with immediately. Here's a full list of what makes a team a contender. Top 25 forward, top 50 forward, top 20 defenseman, top 40 defenseman, top 10 starter, top 10 backup, great 3 to 8 forwards, great 3 to 5 defensemen, special teams that add up to more than 100% cumulatively, and top 10 expected goals percentage overall. Playoff experience can be a bonus point or two. Anything that's at least 8 out of 10 from that list is considered a contender. And there you have it, everyone. This is how a successful rebuild from scratch to contender is supposed to look like. If there's delays in crucial timelines such as making the playoffs or becoming contender, there's likely at least one big mistake made by the GM if it wasn't for terrible luck such as injuries or just a super stacked conference. These are approximately what rebuilding teams aim to do and the standard expectations for the process. Hope you learned some things today, everyone. Have a good day.